The October sun beat down hard on the windows of the small apartment in Compton, California. Marcus and Michael, 16-year-old twins, were sitting on the floor of their shared bedroom, surrounded by crumpled sheets of paper and pens that no longer worked properly. The old fan made a constant noise but couldn't ease the heat that made the environment almost suffocating. "Bro, this isn't working," said Marcus, throwing another sheet into the already overflowing trash. "How are we going to get his attention?" Michael, always the more optimistic of the two, adjusted his glasses and looked at his brother with determination. "We can't give up now, Marcus. You know how much this means to our mom." Outside, the sound of sirens echoed through the neighborhood. Streets, a constant soundtrack in the boys' lives. They had grown up in Compton, knowing every corner, every story of overcoming, and every difficulty the place offered. Their mother, Janet, worked 2 jobs, in the morning as a cleaning assistant, at a hospital, and at night as an attendant at a convenience store, all to ensure her children had at least the basics. "Remember when Mom told us that she and Dad met at a party where Snoop Dogg was playing?" Michael continued, his eyes shining with the memory. "She always said that was one of the most special nights of her life." Marcus sighed deeply. Their father had died in a car accident when they were only 8 years old, and since then, Janet had carried the weight of raising 2 children alone. She never complained, but the boys saw the tiredness in her eyes every night when she came home. "Okay, let's try one more time," said Marcus, picking up a new sheet of paper. "But this time, let's be honest. No invention, no drama, just the truth." The two looked at each other and began to write together, each word carefully thought out. "Dear Snoop Dogg, our names are Marcus and Michael Johnson. We are 16-year-old twins, and we live in Compton. We know you must receive thousands of letters, but we hope ours reaches you. Our mother, Janet Johnson, has been your fan forever. She always tells us that you and our father met at a party where you were performing, right at the beginning of your career. That was one of the happiest nights of her life. Our father died when we were little, and since then our mother works 2 jobs to take care of us. She never complains, but we know it's hard. Her 40th birthday is coming up, December 15th, and we wanted to give her something special, something that would show how much she means to us. We're not asking for money or anything material. We just wanted to know if it would be possible for you to send a video or a message to her. Her name is Janet Johnson, and she lives at 432 Elm Street in Compton. We know you're a busy person, but if you could help us, it would be the best gift we could give our mother. With respect and admiration, Marcus and Michael Johnson." When they finished writing, the two reread the letter several times. The room had cooled down a bit as the hours passed, and the street noise had diminished. It was as if the world had stopped so they could find the right words. "I think that's it," said Michael, folding the letter carefully. "Do you really think he'll respond?" Marcus asked, his voice carrying a mixture of hope and skepticism. "I don't know, but at least we tried," Michael replied. "And if it doesn't work out, at least we know we did our best." The next day, the boys walked to the nearest post office. It was a Saturday morning, and the streets were busier. Children played in the yards, while the older ones chatted on the porches. It was the kind of day Marcus and Michael usually took advantage of to play basketball on the school court, but today they had a more important mission. The postal clerk, a gray-haired gentleman named Mr. Rodriguez, had known the boys since they were small. "What are you sending today?" he asked, with a smile. "A very important letter," said Michael, handing over the envelope addressed to Snoop Dogg's office in Los Angeles. "It's for our mom," Marcus added. Mr. Rodriguez stamped the envelope with extra care. "I'm sure it will reach the right place," he said, winking at the boys. When they left the post office, Marcus and Michael walked in silence for a few blocks. The weight of what they had done was beginning to settle in. They had placed their hopes and dreams in an envelope, and now all that remained was to wait. "What if he doesn't receive it?" Marcus asked when they got home. "What if he does receive it?" Michael replied, always maintaining the optimism that defined his personality. That night, when Janet came home from work, she found her 2 sons in the kitchen, preparing a simple snack. She smiled, despite the visible tiredness on her face. "How was your day?" she asked, kissing each one's forehead. "It was good, Mom," said Marcus, exchanging a meaningful look with Michael. "We did something special today." Janet observed them with curiosity, but didn't insist. She had learned to respect her children's little secrets, knowing they always shared what was really important. While the family gathered for the simple dinner of sandwiches and juice, Marcus and Michael could barely contain their anxiety. The letter was on its way, carrying with it all their hopes and the love they felt for their mother. Outside, Compton continued its nighttime routine. Cars passed, people talked, life followed its normal course. But inside that small apartment, two boys had planted the seed of something that could change everything. The letter was in the mail, traveling through the city, carrying with it a story of family love, perseverance, and the hope that sometimes, just sometimes, dreams come true. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus and Michael sent the letter, and the Johnson family's routine continued the same. Janet woke up at 5:30 in the morning, prepared a quick coffee, and left for her first job. The boys went to school, came back, in the afternoon, did their homework and waited for their mother to come home around 10 p.m. But there was something different in the air. Marcus, normally skeptical, found himself checking the mailbox every day, while Michael tried to maintain optimism, although his confidence was beginning to waver. It was a Thursday afternoon when everything changed. The sky was heavy with gray clouds, heralding one of the first rains of the California autumn. Marcus arrived from school with a somber expression on his face. "Dude, it's been almost a month," he said, throwing his backpack on the bed. "I think we have to accept that it's not going to work." Michael was sitting at the small desk they shared, trying to concentrate on his math homework. "Maybe he hasn't received it yet," he murmured. But his voice didn't carry the same conviction as before. "Michael, stop it. The guy's a celebrity. He probably receives thousands of letters. Why would ours be special?" The room fell silent, except for the distant sound of the neighbor's television and the noise of cars passing on the street. Reality was beginning to weigh on the two boys. They had invested so much emotionally and mentally in that letter that the possibility of not receiving a response seemed almost unbearable. That's when they heard the doorbell ring. "It must be Mrs. Martinez," said Michael, referring to the elderly neighbor who sometimes asked for help with shopping. Marcus went to the door, but when he opened it, he found a man he didn't recognize. He was a tall guy, wearing a blue polo shirt and holding a clipboard. "Are you Marcus and Michael Johnson?" the man asked. "We are," Marcus replied, immediately, suspicious. "Why?" "My name is Dave. I'm a production assistant. I'm here because of the letter you sent." Michael appeared behind his brother, eyes wide. "Letter? What letter?" Dave smiled. "The letter to Snoop Dogg. He received it, read it, and, well, he wants to meet you." The boys looked at each other, unable to fully process what they were hearing. Marcus was the first to recover his voice. "Is this serious?" "Completely serious," Dave replied, showing official identification. "He was very touched by your story and wants to do something special for your mother. Can I come in? We have a lot to talk about." The next 15 minutes were a blur of information. Dave explained that Snoop Dogg had not only read the letter, but had researched the Johnson family. He discovered that Janet had really been at that party in the 90s, and that the boy's story was true. "He wants to surprise your mother," Dave explained, sitting on the small living room sofa. "But we need your collaboration. Are you up for it?" "Of course!" Michael exclaimed, but Marcus was still processing. "What do you mean a surprise?" Marcus asked. Dave smiled mysteriously. "Let me just say it's going to be something she'll never forget. But we need to keep it absolutely secret until her birthday. Can you do that?" The boys nodded, still in shock. "Great. Now I'm going to need some information. What time does she get home from work on the 15th? What are her musical tastes? Is there any special place she likes to go?" During the next hour, Dave asked a series of detailed questions about Janet. The boys told about her 2 jobs, about how she always played Snoop Dogg's music to clean the house on weekends, about how she dreamed of one day being able to travel, to see other places, but never had the opportunity. "And you? What do you like to do?" Dave asked. "Marcus plays a little drums," said Michael. "And I like to write." "Interesting." Dave wrote everything down on the clipboard. "Very well, boys. In the next few days, some people will contact you. They could be producers, technicians, other team members. It's all part of the surprise. When Dave left, Marcus and Michael sat in the living room, looking at each other in complete silence. "Did this really happen?" Michael finally asked. "I think so," Marcus replied, still incredulous. That night, when Janet came home from work, the boys were particularly excited, but tried to disguise it. She noticed something different, but attributed it to the natural energy of teenagers. "You guys are acting really strange today," she commented, smiling while heating up dinner. "We're fine, Mom," Michael said quickly. "Yeah, just excited." "About classes," Marcus added, earning a confused look from Michael. Janet laughed. "Since when do you get excited about classes?" The following days were a mixture of anxiety and excitement. As Dave had promised, different people called the boys. A producer named Sarah explained some details about the event. A sound technician came to check the acoustics of the house. Each new person who appeared made the situation more real and more surreal at the same time. "Dude, this is crazy," Marcus said the night before Janet's birthday. "Like, this is really going to happen tomorrow." "I know," Michael replied, lying, in bed and looking at the ceiling. "I just hope she likes it." "She's going to love it," Marcus said with conviction. "It's going to be the best birthday of her life." Outside, Compton was quiet, except for the usual nighttime sounds. But inside that small apartment, two boys could barely sleep, knowing that the next day would bring something extraordinary to the woman who had sacrificed so much for them. The letter had opened a door they didn't even know existed, and tomorrow, that door would open completely. December 15th dawned clear and cold in Compton. Marcus woke up at 6 a.m., long before the alarm went off, with his heart beating fast. Michael was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, looking out the window. "Today is the day," Michael murmured. "Yeah," Marcus replied, feeling a mixture of nervousness and excitement he had never experienced before. Janet followed her normal routine, without suspecting anything. She kissed her sons before leaving for work, as she always did, and commented that she was happy it was her birthday, even though it was just another ordinary work day. "When I get home tonight, maybe we can order a pizza to celebrate," she said, adjusting her hospital uniform. "Sure, Mom," said Michael, trying to contain the anxiety in his voice. As soon as Janet left, the phone rang. It was Sarah, the producer. "Boys, it's today. Are you ready?" During the next few hours, the Johnson house transformed into a movie set. A team of technicians arrived discreetly, setting up sound equipment, cameras, and lights. The small backyard was decorated with golden lights and a small improvised stage. "This is unbelievable," Marcus said to Michael, watching the activity. Dave arrived around noon, bringing with him contagious energy. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Nervous," Michael admitted. "Excited," Marcus added. "Perfect. Nervousness and excitement are exactly what we need today," Dave smiled. "Now, let's go over the plan one more time." The plan was simple, but carefully orchestrated. Janet would arrive from work at 10 p.m., as always. The boys would say they had a small surprise in the backyard. When she went out the back door, she would find not only the decoration, but Snoop Dogg himself waiting for her. "And what time will he arrive?" Marcus asked. "He's already here," Dave said casually. "What do you mean he's already here?" Both boys shouted at the same time. Dave laughed. "He's at Mrs. Martinez's house waiting for the right moment. She's collaborating with us." The boys were shocked. Mrs. Martinez, the elderly neighbor who always asked for help with shopping, was hiding Snoop Dogg in her house. Around 8 p.m., when the sun had already set completely, Dave gathered everyone for a final check. The lights were perfect, the sound working, the cameras positioned to capture every moment. "Boys," Dave said, putting a hand on each one's shoulder, "you made something incredible happen. Your mother will remember this day for the rest of her life." At 9:45 p.m., Marcus and Michael were posted at the front window, watching the street. Their hearts were beating so hard they were sure the neighbors could hear. "There she is," Michael whispered, seeing Janet's familiar figure walking down the sidewalk, clearly tired after a long day of work. "Positions, everyone," Dave said through the headset. Janet opened the front door and found her sons waiting for her with huge smiles on their faces. Happy birthday, Mom, both said in unison. Thank you, my loves, she said, kissing each one. You seem more excited than usual today. We have a surprise for you, Michael said, barely able to contain his excitement. A surprise? Janet asked, putting her purse on the sofa. You didn't need to. You need to come with us to the backyard, Marcus interrupted, taking his mother's hand. Janet laughed. Okay, but I hope you didn't spend money we don't have. The boys led her to the back door. Marcus held the handle, looked at Michael, who nodded, and opened the door. The backyard was transformed. Golden lights shone everywhere, creating a magical atmosphere. And there, on the small improvised stage, was Snoop Dogg himself, holding a microphone and smiling. Janet stopped completely. Her legs weakened, and she had to lean against the doorframe. No, it's not possible, she murmured, bringing her hands to her face. Happy birthday, Janet, Snoop Dogg said, his characteristic voice echoing through the backyard. Your sons wrote a very special letter to me. Janet looked at Marcus and Michael, then at Snoop Dogg, then back at her sons. Tears began to flow down her face. You did this for me? She asked, her voice choked. You deserve it, Mom, said Michael, also starting to cry. You do everything for us, Marcus added, hugging his mother. Snoop Dogg came down from the stage and approached the family. Janet, your sons told me about you, about how you work hard, about how you raised them alone, about how you're an incredible mother. And they also told me about that party, back in the 90s. Janet nodded, still in shock. I remember. It was one of the best nights of my life. Well, today is going to be even better, Snoop Dogg smiled. Because today is about you, about your family, and about the love you have for each other. What happened next was pure magic. Snoop Dogg sang some of Janet's favorite songs, told stories about the early years of his career, and most importantly, talked with her as if they were old friends. He asked about her life, her dreams, her challenges. You know, Janet, he said, in a calmer moment, when I received your son's letter, I was impressed. Not only with the love they have for you, but with the kind of person you must be to have raised two such special boys. Janet cried and laughed at the same time. I can't believe this is happening. Believe it, Snoop Dogg smiled. And there's one more thing, he signaled to Dave, who brought an envelope. Your sons told me you always dreamed of traveling but never had the opportunity. Well, now you do. Inside the envelope were tickets to Las Vegas, with paid accommodation for a complete weekend. For you and the boys, Snoop Dogg explained. You deserve some time to have fun together. Janet could no longer form words. She hugged her sons, hugged Snoop Dogg, and cried tears of pure happiness. The night continued with music, conversations, and lots of affection. The neighbors, who had been discreetly warned, appeared to celebrate. Mrs. Martinez came out of her house with a cake she had prepared in secret. It was a simple party, but perfect. A celebration of family love, human kindness, and the magic that happens when people genuinely care about each other. 3 months had passed since that magical December night, and the Johnson family's life had changed in ways they never could have imagined. Janet was sitting at the small kitchen table, looking at photos from the Las Vegas trip. The boys were at school, and she had a few free hours before her afternoon work. She smiled seeing the photo of her and her sons in front of the hotel, all with radiant smiles. The trip had been everything she had always dreamed of, and more. They watched shows, ate at restaurants they could never afford, and most importantly, spent quality time together, away from daily worries. But what impressed her most wasn't the trip itself, or the night with Snoop Dogg. It was what her sons had done. The initiative, the love, the determination. They had shown a maturity and affection that made her proud every day. The phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Margaret, her supervisor at the hospital. Janet, do you have a minute to talk? Of course, Margaret. Did something happen? Actually, yes. Good thing. Do you remember that article about you and your sons that came out in the local newspaper? Janet remembered. A reporter had heard about the story and written a touching article about the birthday surprise. The article spread on social media and generated a lot of positive attention. Well, the hospital board read the article, and they were impressed. They want to offer you a full-time position in the Human Resources Department. It comes with a significant salary increase and full benefits. Janet almost dropped the phone. Are you serious? Completely. They said someone with your dedication and character is exactly what they're looking for. What do you think? Tears of joy began to flow down Janet's face. I accept. Of course I accept. When Marcus and Michael came home from school that afternoon, they found their mother waiting for them with a smile she couldn't contain. Boys, sit here. I have news to tell you. She told them about the hospital's offer, about how their life was about to get easier, about how she could finally work just one job and spend more time with them. This is incredible, Mom, Michael exclaimed. All because of the letter, Marcus said, still amazed at how a simple letter had changed their lives. No, Janet corrected, hugging both sons. All because of love. The love you have for me, the love I have for you, and the love that people like Snoop Dogg have for humanity. That night, Dave called with some news. Guys, I have a surprise for you. Snoop Dogg wants to invite you to his studio. He's recording a song about families and wants Marcus to play drums on the recording. Seriously? Marcus couldn't believe it. And Michael, he wants you to write some verses about your experience. The boys looked at each other, still processing all the positive changes that were happening. 2 weeks later, Marcus was sitting behind a professional drum kit in Snoop Dogg's studio, his hands trembling slightly as he waited for the signal to start. Michael was beside him, with a paper in his hand, containing the verses he had written about family love and perseverance. Are you ready? Snoop Dogg asked, adjusting his headphones. Ready, both replied in unison. The song they recorded that day didn't become a national hit, but it became something much more special, a sound document of a family that loved each other unconditionally and had proven that sometimes, when you have the courage to ask for help, the universe responds in extraordinary ways. 6 months later, Marcus and Michael graduated from high school with college scholarships. Marcus received a partial scholarship to study music, while Michael got a full scholarship for journalism. Janet attended the graduation ceremony wearing a new dress bought with the money she could now save thanks to her new job. She watched her sons receive their diplomas with tears in her eyes, thinking about how it all started with a simple letter. After the ceremony, the three were walking to the car when Michael stopped. Mom, there's something I've always wanted to ask you. What is it, my love? Did you ever imagine our life could be like this? Happy, stable, full of opportunities? Janet thought for a moment, looking at the 2 young men her sons had become. You know, Michael, I always dreamed of this, but I never imagined that you would be responsible for making these dreams come true. We all made this happen, Marcus said. Together. Together, Janet agreed, hugging her sons. As they drove back home through the streets of Compton, passing by the same places where they had grown up, the Johnson family reflected on the extraordinary journey they had lived. A letter had changed everything, but it was love, courage, and determination that had sustained that change. That night, Janet found the original letter the boys had written to Snoop Dogg, framed on their bedroom wall. She read it again, smiling, at the simple and honest words that had opened doors they didn't even know existed. Thank you, she whispered, gently touching the glass of the frame. Outside, Compton continued its usual nighttime life. But inside that small apartment, a family had learned that sometimes miracles happen not through magic, but through the courage to be vulnerable, the strength of family love, and the unexpected kindness of strangers who become angels in our lives. The letter had been just the beginning. The real miracle was what they built together from that moment. A life based on love, hope, and the certainty that no matter how difficult things may seem, there is always reason to believe in better days.